Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for the 10th of May. It's a Monday morning. I hope that you're all doing well. Before I get going, I just want to remind you all I will be at St. Thomas Anglican Church at the corner of 3rd Ave and 12th Street in Wainwright from 10 until 2 and 6 until 7 o'clock this evening for you to drop by and sign a card of appreciation for members of the folks who work at the hospital, from the CEO and the board of directors to the doctors and nurses and the custodians and the technicians and the ambulance drivers and everybody in between. If you have to go to work at the hospital every day, we want to offer our Thanksgiving. So come on by to the church and sign a card and drop off some canned goods, because we're doing a food drive for the Wainwright Food Bank, recognizing that in this shutdown there are lots of folks who are losing hours or they're losing their jobs and they're finding it really tough to make ends meet. So let's help the food bank help them. They're all good people and they're all deserving of our help. So I'll be at the church from 10 until 2 and from 6 until 7 today. And I'll be at St. Mary's in Edgerton from 10 until 2 tomorrow on Tuesday as well. Hope to see you there if I don't see you today at St. Thomas. This morning, I would like to talk to you about sort of post-pandemic. Lots of people are getting their vaccinations, and I know that numbers are still incredibly high, and the numbers in the MD of Wainwright are too high as well. But I'd like to focus on good days, on hopeful days for a minute, and just talk about where do we go from here? What might the world look like? What might church look like? And one of the questions that I have is, what will church look like when we are able to come back together on a regular basis? What will our worship look like? We've gotten used to having church at home. We've been listening to and watching morning prayer. In our case, members of the congregations are helping to lead the worship. They're participating in worship. In some cases, churches are doing live streaming. Other places, they're doing a shortened version of worship. Other places, in other dioceses, are doing like a spiritual communion where the bishop or a priest will celebrate communion on behalf of the people in their diocese. There's all kinds of questions about what is the right way to do this online worship, and where might we go from here? And to be quite frank, we're probably going to be well into the fall before we can get back to worshiping on a regular basis in person. But better to be prepared than not. So we need to start thinking about, what will our church worship look like when it comes time for us to sit beside each other in the pews again. I do believe there will come a time when we can have more than 15% of our people. Right now we're down to 15 people regardless, but I do believe we will have a time when we can sit side by side in pews, and we put our pews back the way they were, or uncordon them off, allowing people to be able to sit in their family pew, as we Anglicans like to do, or everybody congregate at the back, which Anglicans like to do as well, it seems. But what will worship look like? One of the things that the Anglican Church, at least the diocese that I have been in for a long time, have really taken for granted is that in the last 20 or 30 years, maybe even longer, we have become very much a Eucharistic community, meaning we celebrate Holy Communion every Sunday, or if not, pretty darn close. And so our whole way of being, and the generations that we've been raising up, like kids who have been born since the 80s, probably, I could be wrong, but probably quite a few of them who are Anglican have no sense that we ever did anything like morning or evening prayer, but that we use Eucharist all the time, that we celebrate communion whenever we gather. And I'm a big proponent of that. I love that. However, when we've been online for so long, now in our church, we were able to gather for a little while in the summer and the fall, before we went back online again. But for a lot of folks, they've been online since April, or March or April of 2020. So it's been well over a year. Has our sense of being a Eucharistic community changed? How do you feel about communion? How do you feel about morning prayer? Are you of a generation that remembers when morning prayer was the norm, or at least half the norm? Maybe 2 morning prayers a month and 2 Eucharists, or 3 or 4 morning prayers a month and seldom Eucharist, depending on our background and upbringing. Are you feeling comfortable having sort of gone back to the way it was when you were growing up? Are you looking forward to having communion on a regular basis? Or are you of the mindset that, maybe this needs to be another special thing now that we've not had it very often. Some of us in this parish had communion on Easter Sunday for the first time since last November. So where are you there? Please comment and let me know, how are you feeling about the idea of having communion? And I mean that separate from the whole idea about health issues, like standing with somebody at the altar rail to receive your communion or the common cup and things like that. But how are you doing with the idea of simply of coming back to what we used to do and having communion every Sunday? It's a valid question. And it's something I think that all of us as clergy, and the bishops as well, need to be considering as we prepare for that time when we are post-pandemic. I think I will probably talk about other issues around communion and things like that again, but I'd like to just stay with that idea of post-pandemic planning. I think about Noah, and I think about when he was in the ark, and he didn't really know how long it was going to take. God said to him, build the ark. He did. People scoffed at him. He gathered on all the animals 2 by 2, his children and their wives, and they came on board, preparing, they knew not for what, except the fact that God had promised them that if they did what he asked and they prepared, they would be okay. He didn't tell them when it would all be over. He didn't tell them what the world would look like when it was done. He didn't tell them what they had to do to prepare for that world, but he had them come on board in faith, trusting that in the end, that God would take care of them and he would prepare a world for them that they would be able to live in and thrive in, that they would be able to then administer stewardship over, a world that was free of the ailments of greed and idolatry and all of the things that caused God to say enough is enough in the first place. Now, I don't think that the pandemic is God's way of flooding the world. I don't think that this is a punishment from God saying enough is enough. I'm going to save the few who trust me, and I'm going to let the others all perish. I don't think that at all. But I think that the metaphor of all of us being in an ark right now really does fit. We have to come into our spaces in small bubbles. We have to let go of the things that aren't necessarily as important as we might have thought they were. We have time now to really think about what is important. In relationships, is it as important for us to one-up the Joneses, to get a better car than the people next door, to have a better vacation getaway, or to work 90, 100 hours a week to get that promotion to a job that's just going to ask us to work another 100 hours a week while our kids are being shuttled to basketball practices and figure skating by strangers or, well-meaning neighbors? Are we allowing ourselves to take this opportunity to think about what might our world look like when this pandemic is over, when we're allowed to hug each other again? And as my mom asked me today, will we want to hug each other again? Will this completely change the way our generations look at physical intimacy and community? Will our children, who are learning so well how to wear a mask and wash their hands and stay away from other people, will that be the formation that they have that carries forward? I imagine it will. I would argue that this is only a small part of it, because children, like the rest of us, are human beings, and humans need physical attention. We need physical touch. We know that. We're recognizing that in our seniors' homes and our nursing homes and long-term care facilities, that the people who are there who aren't able to have a hug from their daughter or a kiss on the cheek from their son, or simply hold hands with a loved one, that is part of what is causing mental health problems, is the lack of physical touch. So I don't think we're going to lose those things. I think we'll have a new appreciation for them and a healthier way of going about doing them. But at the same time, what other things do we need to prepare for? How can this time, this pandemic, being sort of locked down and in our houses, be an opportunity for us, like it was for Noah and his family, to really start thinking ahead and figuring out, okay, what is important? What things do we need to come off the ark with us? when we go back out into the world, and what things can we just let float away? I wonder about physical, tangible, material things. We have learned a lot about having to be alone, and the booming business for places like Costco and Walmart and Amazon and Purelator Courier and FedEx is showing that we aren't living without our material things, because we have lined their CEOs' pockets well, allowing them to grow and grow and grow, because those are the only places really that we can find the things that we need, but also the things that we want. And so we have discovered new ways of getting those things that we want. I also wonder, though, if maybe we could slow that down. Maybe maybe we could start getting sort of back to the basics like we did at the beginning of the pandemic, and thinking about making bread from scratch, which I do from time to time. I do not own a bread maker, and I do not use the starter. I just go out and get Fleischmann's yeast when I make bread. But the idea being that maybe we can go back to that initial pioneering spirit we had when the lockdown began last spring, and we all sort of went into survivor mode. We can do this. We can handle anything. Now we're sort of over that, and we're struggling, and we're focused on how I can make the world work for me. Maybe we need to start thinking about how we can make the world work, period. How are we being called to look anew at God's creation and our stewardship of it? And what things will we recognize we can let go with the chaff, and which things can we hang on to as we move into the future? Hopefully the things we hold on to will be relationships and prayer, and the opportunities to look out for one another, to take care of each other, to do the right thing. So think about it. Let me know what you think, first of all, about church and your Eucharistic or morning prayer traditions, but also what kinds of things do you hope we will carry forward after this pandemic has been beaten down? And what kinds of things do you hope that we will leave behind as we move into a post-pandemic new world? Have a wonderful day. Hopefully I will see you today at the church between 10 and 2 and 6 and 7 to drop off your canned goods and to sign a card, or tomorrow at St. Mary's from 10 until 2. But have a great day. Stay safe. When you come out to see me at the church, make sure you wear your mask. God bless everybody. Have a wonderful day.